I was a big fan of Wildlands. I didn't expect much going in, but it ended up pleasantly surprising me. But Wildlands, like any other game, had its shortcomings. And in my opinion, a sequel was necessary and, in a way, the natural next step for the Ghost Recon franchise. Wildlands had a great core, the gameplay loop was excellent, and it nailed that tactical feeling. The sequel just needed to build on that foundation and refine it. I remember when I was playing Wildlands, I wanted my character to have more gadgets. The drone was great, but some variety would have made it even better. I also thought having classes would make co-op way more interesting, giving each player a specific role and identity within the squad. Now, to be fair, Breakpoint does exactly those things. But the important question is how, and does it keep the same satisfying loop and tactical depth that made Wildlands work so great? In this video, I will be talking about my experience playing Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Breakpoint in 2025 and sharing my opinion and thoughts on it. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel, but for now, let's talk about Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Breakpoint. This is the first screen you see when you launch the game, so I figured it's the perfect place to start. It's the character select screen. You can create up to 3 characters, which basically act as separate save slots. There's no shared progression between the characters. Each character has their own levels, unlocks, progression, and so on and so forth. I actually like that Breakpoint lets you create multiple characters. It gives you flexibility. Maybe you want one character with gear level enabled and another without. I'll explain what gear level is later, don't worry. Or maybe you want to play your first character on an easier difficulty, then start a second one for a hardcore, tactical, super realistic lone wolf experience. Personally, I've got 2 characters. One I use to play co-op with friends, and the other one is strictly for solo play. Between the two, I've put in over 50 hours at the time of this video, so I've had plenty of time to really get a feel for Breakpoint. Both of my characters have gear level turned off, and I play on extreme difficulty with most of the realistic tactical settings enabled, except for the annoying survival mechanics, which I'll also get into later in the video. As you can see, there are also a few ads for DLC and microtransactions, because, well, of course there are. It is an Ubisoft game after all. To be fair though, Breakpoint isn't too in your face about it. Aside from the character select screen, I don't really remember seeing ads anywhere else, and honestly they never felt that intrusive to me. But enough about the character screen, let's get into the actual game. First off, let's talk about the graphics and sound, just to get them out of the way. Visually, Breakpoint looks phenomenal. The colors are vibrant and almost lifelike, and the island of Oroa offers a few different environments, each beautifully realized. The forests though are easily the standout. The trees, the way the wind moves them, it all looks incredible. I also love how your gear's camo can blend so naturally with your surroundings. You can practically disappear into the environment if you want to. Overall, Breakpoint is a great looking game, no doubt about it. As for the sound, it's equally solid. Footsteps, gunfire, and those short bits of enemy dialogue you occasionally hear, they all add to the overall immersion. There's not a lot of music, but honestly, I think that's a good thing here. You want to stay focused on the mission, keep distractions to a minimum, and pay attention to what the enemy is planning on doing. So yeah, no complaints in the graphics or sound department. Good job all around. The most important question I wanted Breakpoint to answer is the following. Does it have that same tactical, somewhat realistic, deep behind enemy lines gameplay feel that Wildlands offered? And the answer is yes. Yes, it does. The gameplay loop and the overall feel are still there, and I genuinely believe that if you enjoyed Wildlands, you'll almost definitely enjoy Breakpoint as well. But that raises another equally important question. How does it improve on what came before? Because otherwise, what's the point of buying and playing Breakpoint? Sure, at its core, it's Wildlands with a different coat of paint, but Wildlands is already a highly replayable game, especially with its super realistic hardcore ghost mode. I haven't made a video on Wildlands yet. I'm actually in the middle of another ghost mode run right now. I think it's my 3rd attempt at trying to beat ghost mode. If you'd like to see a video on Wildlands similar to this one, let me know down in the comments and I'll probably get to working on it. Anyway, as I was saying, Wildlands had a great core, the foundation was solid, but it needed refinement. The map was too big, the enemy AI could be frustrating, sometimes they'd know exactly where you were, even when they couldn't possibly have seen you. Additionally, the gameplay lacked variety, which was felt more when playing with friends. So, in my mind, a sequel was necessary, a chance to build on Wildlands' strengths and make that fantastic gameplay loop shine even more. Let's dive into the specifics and see where Breakpoint hits the mark, where it misses, and whether it's truly a worthy successor to Wildlands. Just like in Wildlands, there is an overarching story, but it is really boring and insignificant. Instead of taking down a cartel, in Breakpoint you are sent to investigate the private island of Aurora, which is owned by this huge billionaire tech CEO. He's basically Elon Musk. Something goes wrong, and a private military is trying to take over the island and starts using Elon Musk's factories and production line to create robots and AI that specialize in warfare. I didn't really pay attention to the story, but I think that's about the gist of it. There is a lot of dialogue, which is surprising to me, since it really isn't necessary and it doesn't add anything of value to the game. I mean, it is an Ubisoft game after all. The characters are lifeless, and none of the words that are coming out of their mouths are interesting. I feel like any AI large language model agent would have done a better job at both the writing and the voice acting performance of the dialogue. But hey, you can always skip the dialogue and simply focus on the game, which is always good. Before talking about the gameplay further, we should talk about the Ghost experience parameters. These are the difficulty options and modifiers that allow you to tailor the experience to your liking. Although I love the fact that the game allows the player to tailor the experience however they want, at the same time I am extremely worried and skeptical about the future of the Ghost Recon franchise. Let me explain. The most important choice you'll make here is gear level. Enabling it basically turns Breakpoint into a looter shooter. Weapons and gear have levels and random stats are attached to them. If you disable it, each weapon keeps its fixed stats, and once you find its blueprint, you permanently unlock it. That also means no more gear micromanagement, you just pick your weapons and go. I played with gear level switched off, so I can't speak from personal experience, but both of my friends played with it on. The good news, we could play together without any issues. There wasn't a noticeable change in damage output, although there were times where my friends were massively out-leveled in an area, and for them, the enemies there required more firepower to take down. No matter your stats or your weapon, a headshot is always a one-shot one-kill, which I think is a great idea. If you choose to play like me without gear level, then most loot chests are useless, as they only give a handful of common crafting resources. Yes, there are crafting resources and ingredients in this AAA game, just like most others. Alright boys, let's do this. We got to infiltrate the enemy AO and acquire intel. Wait, what's that? A banana? Great, that's exactly what I was looking for. Oh, another banana. Awesome. We'll talk about crafting later. As for now, I want to focus on the gear level and the customizable difficulty settings. For me, simply the fact that gear level exists in a Ghost Recon game is a bad sign. It's like an ill omen for the future of the Ghost Recon franchise. To me, it feels like they are trying to marry both Ghost Recon and the Division franchises. If I am not mistaken, at the time of Breakpoint's launch, these options weren't in the game yet, and the default way to play the game was with gear level. That's another point which adds to my argument. I am really worried about the next Ghost Recon title, as I believe Ubisoft is trying to make this franchise as accessible as possible to mass audiences. Not to mention, they are trying to add as many engagement mechanics as possible. I mean, after all, randomized loot and the constant feeling that the next reward, the next dopamine hit, is just around the corner, does exactly that. It is meant to keep you engaged, keep you playing, and therefore more likely to spend your money on extras such as DLCs and microtransactions. But enough about monetization. As I said, gear level is a thing, but there are other difficulty/immersion modifiers you can choose from. Stuff like how often your character gets injured, or how long till your character gets exhausted after sprinting. If your character will be able to carry 2 weapons on their back, or just the one, not counting the handgun. Will reloading waste the unused ammo from your magazine, or will it be saved? There are a lot of options here to tailor the experience exactly how you want it to be. In my opinion, some of these add to the overall immersion and some are just there to annoy you. Personally, I tried to make my experience as close to Wildlands as I could. I didn't care about the survival elements like injury resistance and frequency, or having as little stamina as possible. My favorite option was the Darkest Night. I recommend all of you to have this option enabled. It basically makes nighttime to be as dark as possible, not to mention it looks phenomenal. At times it can be very hard navigating in the darkness of night, which means you will have to make use of your night vision or thermal goggles. Darkest Night is a must and adds to the immersion and the overall feel of infiltrating a large enemy base at the dead of night, with only a small squad of regular dudes going against all odds. At times, it truly feels like the ultimate commando fantasy. Oh, I almost forgot to mention the enemy difficulty. I played on the extreme difficulty for both my characters. Extreme difficulty means enemy detection is very fast and enemies are much deadlier. My friends played on hard and at times switched to extreme. It can be a bit unfair when your friends are playing on a lower difficulty, as they can afford messing up more than you. For example, let's say that things go south and your squad gets spotted. They will be able to take more damage before they go down compared to you. That being said, I recommend you start on hard difficulty and see how that feels. Normal is extremely easy. The enemy AI feels brain dead and it is pretty much impossible to fail. I would only recommend normal difficulty if you are looking for a super casual, low effort, chill experience. If you want to have more of a realistic tactical and immersive approach, play on hard and at some point definitely try turning it up to extreme. Like I said earlier, the gameplay in Recon Breakpoint is excellent. It retains that same tactical, grounded, third-person shooter feel that Wildlands did so well. The moment-to-moment action is intense, and when you combine it with the immersive Ghost experience parameters, it really feels like you're part of a small squad of commandos deep behind enemy lines, taking on impossible missions against overwhelming odds. But you're not some unstoppable super soldier like in Call of Duty or Crysis. In Breakpoint, you and your teammates are just regular soldiers, outnumbered and outgunned. Charging in guns blazing rarely works unless you're playing on the easier difficulties. You need to plan your approach carefully and thoroughly, observe enemy patrols, and coordinate your every move. Just because you have clear sights on an enemy's head doesn't mean you should take the shot, as enemies get alerted when they spot a downed guard, and it takes a while until they drop their guard down again. The drone is back and it is more useful than ever. The first thing you do before approaching an enemy settlement is fly your drone out and scout the area ahead, marking enemies and points of interest. The drone may have lost most of its abilities from Wildlands, but now you can use it to scout unknown and unexplored locations in the open world. I really like this feature because once you scout a location, you can see exactly what kind of loot it has in the world map. And unfortunately, the world map is much larger than it was on Wildlands. You'll notice a lot of reused locations, and after a while it gets pretty exhausting revisiting these same areas just to pick up a couple of random weapon parts. And since I mentioned it, let's talk about Breakpoint's systems and game mechanics before going into the nitty-gritty of the gameplay loop.
Good job, boss.
So, this is the bivouac, basically your campfire. You can rest here, restock ammo and supplies, tweak your loadout, and do a few other things. Let's go through them quickly. Side note, you can skip the setup cutscene, which is a lifesaver because you'll be doing this a lot. First up, buffs. When in a bivouac, you can pick one buff that lasts for an hour. Most of them are pretty useless. I mean, injury resistance sounds nice if you hit the gym regularly. I wish I had that in real life. I'm actually recovering from a minor pec pull right now, but I digress. The only truly useful buff is the XP bonus. if you're still leveling and haven't hit the level cap. Otherwise, go for accuracy. Lower that damn weapon, you punk. Okay, moving on. Next is the tactics menu. This is where you switch classes. There are 7 classes in total, covering every role you'd expect. Each comes with an active ability, a class-specific gadget, and a few passive bonuses. Stuff like improve handling with a certain class of weapons. Nothing game-changing, but it helps. You'll need to rank up your class to unlock the class proficiencies, which is a bit annoying, though the rank up challenges are pretty fun. They include both PvE and PvP tasks, which is a nice touch and considerate of players who might be interested in playing only the one mode. To go beyond level 10 with a class, you'll have to complete challenges on Golem Island, Breakpoints and Game Zone. I've played most of the classes and while they're fun, they kind of blend together. The Echelon and Sharpshooter, for example, feel almost identical. I'd rather have fewer classes with stronger, more distinct identities. Next up, the crafting menu. Honestly, this game doesn't need crafting. I get the idea, you're stranded behind enemy lines and need to improvise, but systems like these rarely add anything fun. Thankfully, you can completely ignore it. You can craft equipment and rations, but rations only give minor, barely noticeable buffs. And since you can just buy experiment with credits, crafting becomes pointless. Speaking of which, the shop. Pretty straightforward, spend credits to buy vehicles, weapons, cosmetics, and attachments. There's a ton of variety here, especially for customization, which I really appreciate. For the weapon variety though, that's a different story. There are too many weapons. Wildlands had the same issue, hundreds of guns that feel almost identical. Instead of quantity, I'd prefer fewer weapons with more distinct roles. Give me a few rifles with high rate of fire, couple built for long range, and some that excel at handling, and keep them balanced. And the final feature of the bivouac is the garage. You get to choose a vehicle and it will spawn near the campsite once you exit. This is the most important feature of the bivouac, and you will be regularly using them just to spawn helicopters so you can travel easy to your next destination. FYI, you can buy a stealth chopper from the shop and the enemies won't hear you flying nearby, which is pretty cool. You can also access loadouts from the menu, but you can't swap weapons unless you're at the bivouac. From here you can check your class challenges, modify and customize your weapons and equipment, and equip perks. There's a ton of items to play with, and some of them are genuinely useful depending on the mission. I especially like the bridge torch. It lets you cut through fences to create new entrances, which is super handy when a base doesn't have a clear way in. Wildlands had the same issue, so this tool fixes that nicely. I also like the bullet throw item, which distracts nearby enemies. It's simple, yet effective. Each weapon can be upgraded from Mark 1 to Mark 3. Every module gives small stat bonuses when crafted, and once you upgrade a weapon to the next Mark level, it gains a permanent passive boost. To be honest though, this system feels unnecessary, especially if the weapon balance was handled better in the first place. You use weapon parts to craft the weapon upgrades, and the rarity or tier of the weapon parts required for an upgrade depend on the current mark level of the weapon. Weapon attachments return as well, and this time they come with noticeable trade-offs. For example, one grip might improve vertical recoil but worsen horizontal recoil. In practice though, attachments don't make a huge difference, but to be fair, I only played with one primary weapon, so my choices were mostly limited. When you are playing with only one primary weapon, it makes sense to make that weapon as balanced and as versatile as possible, and most attachments don't help with that. One thing the game nails is weapon customization. The camo options are great. You can apply different camos to individual weapon parts, and it looks fantastic. You can also unlock up to 3 perk slots, which gives you small stat bonuses or minor abilities. What is my problem with the perks? There aren't enough interesting choices to choose from. A few perks are useful depending on the situation, and it's great that you can change perks on a whim, but I bet most people play using the same handful of perks. Going over the menus, first up, it's the map. As chaotic as ever, the world map is too big for its own good. Due northeast, you can find Golem Island, which is this game's endgame zone and includes endgame content like raids. From the map, you can find the next mission, weapon blueprints you've gained intel on, bivouacs, and points of interest. The Ghost War tab is used to play the PvP modes. I've only played PvE, so I can't talk about the PvE modes. It is not something that interests me. Next up, the lobby menu. You can create a party to play with your friends here. You can also manage your AI squad here. Your squad can level up and unlock new abilities with each level. You level up your squad by gaining XP, doing random stuff in the open world, or if you want to speed up the process of leveling up, by completing the teammates' challenges. You can choose to disable specific abilities used by your AI teammates, or even completely disable AI teammates if you want a lone wolf kind of experience. Of course, you can customize the appearance of your AI teammates as well. But now, I want to move on to an absolute nightmare of a menu, the objectives board. Unfortunately, you will be visiting this menu often, as it is required to progress with most missions. This menu is like a huge checklist of everything you can do in Breakpoint. All main missions and side missions are listed here. The Ghost War PvP missions, the daily missions, yes, Breakpoint does have daily missions, more live service engagement mechanics, exactly what every gamer wants, but nonetheless they only reward you with weapon parts, so they can be mostly ignored. You can also see all the attachments and weapons available and the approximate area where you can find them, but the most annoying part is the investigations. You see, as you gather collectibles and as you complete mission objectives, you will gain intel on investigations. And after you learn all the necessary intel for an investigation, you need to consult your objectives board to solve the investigation. This is a mandatory part of most missions, and it is super annoying to deal with every time. Anyway, moving on, the weapon mastery menu is used to spend skill points to increase your capabilities with weapon types. You can start investing skill points in weapon masteries after you've unlocked all skills and classes from the skill tree. It's nothing major, more numbers to keep you happy and make your job easier, whatever. In the skills menu, you unlock classes, abilities, perks, passives, and other upgrades by spending skill points. You get skill points on level up and on class rank ups, but you can also find skill points in chests in the open world. Most options here are uninspiring, and you will quickly get enough skill points to unlock most useful upgrades. So there's no need to go into much detail here, plus we already talked about perks. And finally, we got the customize menu. The customization in Breakpoint is excellent. You can change every part of your outfit and dye it. A lot of nice parts to find in the open world or buy from the shop. The identity menu is not important, it's just a stat screen, but you can also change your callouts, which might be useful if you're playing with other people without voice chat. Getting back to the gameplay loop, I have to say it's genuinely great. I know I've been pretty critical of Breakpoint so far, but at its core it is a fun and enjoyable game. I can't think of another game that captures that tactical, semi-stealth, immersive feel of infiltrating an enemy base, taking out enemies in sync with your squad, and completing the objective as safely and as quietly as possible. Well, another game other than Wildlands, that is. Funny enough, I realize as I am writing the script, Metal Gear Solid perfectly fits the description I'm giving to Breakpoint, at least at first glance, and if you're unfamiliar with the Ghost Recon franchise. I can see how that might confuse some people, so let me explain. Imagine a spectrum that describes all action games. To the left side, there are stealth games that avoid enemy encounters as much as possible. To the right side are the full-on action, pedal to the metal, adrenaline-fueled games. Metal Gear Solid leans way more towards the stealth side of that spectrum, while Breakpoint is sitting somewhere around the middle and maybe leaning towards the stealth side of the spectrum a little bit. I would go as far as to say that Breakpoint spans a big area of the spectrum depending on the difficulty you're going to play at, as easier difficulties make gunfights, and as a result being spotted by the enemy and triggering an alert, much easier to deal with. In any case, Breakpoint's gameplay offers more variety than its predecessor. Naturally, the sync shot makes a return. It is still as powerful as ever. Don't worry, sync shots can still penetrate through super thick concrete walls. Although a cooldown is no longer visible, each teammate has their own cooldown on use of sync shot. You will notice it if you take more time to reuse a 3-man sync shot and spam it quickly. Vehicles also make a return. Once again, the helicopters are the most useful vehicles to freely and easily traverse through the massive island of Oroa. The controls of the vehicles not only haven't been improved, but I would go as far as to say they are even worse than before. Thankfully, the helicopters are still easy to handle, so that's the most important part. Also, I know I said that the sound in Breakpoint is pretty good, however, most vehicles sound terrible. I guess that's on purpose, because almost all vehicles are electric. I mean, it does make sense, the game takes place on Elon Musk's private island after all. The new enemy types are also a nice addition. Enemies now have distinct classes, and each behaves differently. For example, the Breachers are close-quarter combat experts and are equipped with shotguns that are super deadly from short range. As a result, they sprint to your location to quickly take you out. The Heavies move very slowly but can dish out extreme damage. They wear heavy helmets that take a few shots to break before you can land a headshot. Therefore, a sniper rifle isn't effective against them. The radio operators will call out for reinforcements once the enemies have spotted you, so it's a good idea to take them out quickly. The new robot enemies are cool as well, although I don't like the huge tank Metal Gear type of robot. I believe they're called behemoths. They are too bullet spongy, and who will be favored in a fight, you versus the behemoth, depends more on the terrain and the surrounding area rather than actual tactics or strategy. The turrets are also fun to deal with. It's another reason for you to focus on the stealth approach rather than going guns blazing. They can be deactivated or even hijacked to use against the enemy. Turrets also have weak points you can hit to take them out quickly, if you are accurate enough, that is. The swarm of drones are annoying, especially when they evade all the time. Enemy AI is decent, though it can be cheesed at times. The bright side is you can definitely use that to your advantage on higher difficulties. Good news is, the friendly AI of your squadmates has been greatly improved from Wildlands. In my 50 hours of playing, they never once got spotted by the enemy, and they're far more efficient in gunfights. They're also better at spotting enemies and constantly call out useful information, which really helps since it's nearly impossible to keep track of everything. There are more intro spaces in Breakpoint, which is a bit of a bummer. Just like in Wildlands, they're still pretty bad here. I think this is a problem with a lot of games that use the third-person camera perspective. I remember I had a similar problem back when I played the Batman Arkham games. You can't have small interiors because the camera position makes it awkward to navigate the space. It always feels kind of claustrophobic, and I often had trouble finding the exit to a building. I don't understand why they don't let you jump from the roof. It is no longer possible to one-shot, one-kill enemies from stealth. In Wildlands, if the enemy was unalerted, then it didn't matter where you hit them or with which weapon, they would always go down in one shot. In Breakpoint, only headshots are one-shot, one-kills, which makes sense. The minimap is a complete mess. It is cluttered with every possible highlighted item. It is difficult to separate the enemies from everything else, as anything that can be picked up can be marked in the minimap, whether that be a loot chest, ammo, equipment, and health items, or loot dropped by fallen enemies. I wish the enemy markers were larger, both on the minimap and in the world view. I often missed nearby enemies because of that. There's no toggle option for sprint, which is super annoying. Wildlands had this option, so why it's not present here, I don't understand. You'll be running constantly. I do recommend though binding autorun to an easy key, because you'll use it a lot. Another minor annoyance for me were the binoculars. They're no longer bound to a key, instead, they're just another item in your inventory. You could use the drone for scouting exclusively though, and this time I believe there are no jammers to ruin your plans. at least not to my knowledge. Still, I missed using the binoculars. Last thing I want to mention is the bugs. As most of you already know, Breakpoint had a notoriously rough launch. Most of the bugs have been fixed since then, but you'll still run into the occasional glitch. The most common one for me was after exiting a bivouac or vehicle. Sometimes my character would clip into the ground or teleport a few feet away. I even had a hard crash once, but that was it. They're rare now, but still noticeable enough to remind you how messy things once were. Ghost Recon Breakpoint isn't the disaster people remember, but it's definitely not the sequel I wanted. At the end of the day, it's one of those games that frustrates you as much as it impresses you. It's got a solid foundation, a fantastic gameplay loop, and some genuinely great tactical moments. But it's also bloated, inconsistent, and sometimes just confused about what it wants to be. If you want the best tactical shooter, you're better off playing Wildlands. If you're after the power grind and loot treadmill, you might as well play The Division 2. Still, when everything clicks, when you're sneaking through the dead of night, lining up that perfect sync shot, or escaping a base you just cleared, it reminds you why this formula worked so well in the first place. Maybe that's the best way to sum up Breakpoint. Not a bad game, just a wasted opportunity that's still fun if you meet it halfway. If you enjoyed this video or found it interesting, consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. Also, please let me know what you thought of this video. It's my first long-form game analysis, and I'm planning to do more like it in the future. And if you want to see a similar deep dive into Wildlands, definitely let me know down below. Personally, I still think it's the better game of the two. Anyway, that's enough for this one. Take care everyone, and I'll see you in the next one. Banana.